As entrepreneurs, we often believe that the key to growing our business lies in better systems, bigger audiences, or more sales. But what if the real barrier to your bottom line isn't outside your business, it's inside your mindset? Tune in to today's topic to learn more.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
In today's episode, we're uncovering how your beliefs, habits, and emotions about money could be sabotaging your pricing, profitability, and financial confidence without your even realizing it. So, Linda, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Candy. I'm happy to be here and share my insights into money, mindset, and all the things that block us internally.
I think it's an important topic, and I think a lot of people don't always realize that there's some internal things that really are affecting their performance and the outcomes they're getting into. So I think it's going to be a fabulous topic. But I would love to ask first, what sparked your passion for exploring this connection between money mindset and business growth?
So it actually started when I was working as a financial planner, working with clients. This is how my whole money mindset thing got going, because working with so many different people and so many different personalities, and sometimes the mindset around money was just, amazing, because they'd be talking about all these different things, and I would be like, they just need to get out of their own way. I mean, I wouldn't be saying, I'd be trying to say that to them nicely, but I'd be like, they just need to get out of their own way. Like, they're just not seeing it. There's something blocking them. And it was just really intriguing to me. So I started learning all about the money mindset and how that works. And then, starting my own business and thinking about my money mindset personally, as well as in business, and how just talking to other people about it. And it just became so interesting to me as part of my financial journey in my financial career, was learning about this whole other side of it that affects us so much. So I was just really intrigued with it. And it just took me down this other path of figuring out, how can I help people really overcome those internal obstacles around money in their personal finance and in their business.
Mm-hmm. So important. And I thank you for even just sharing that. It's always kind of interesting to hear how sometimes people got into doing what they're doing and helping others. So I appreciate that. But I'd love to move now into obviously entrepreneurs often assume that their struggles are really financial. And, if I just earn more, if I just charged more, if I had more customers, everything would be great. Right. But you're saying they're often emotional. So I would love for you to just dive a little bit more into that and helping the entrepreneurs understand where their challenges may be coming from.
Right. So first of all, in that sentence you just said, if I only had this, if I only had that, I mean, that's a mindset right there. That's a mindset of scarcity, of thinking that there's not enough. And that in itself creates that whole aura of not enough, right? So we talk about scarcity and abundance. And I know that some people think of this and they think that's just hooey stuff, but it goes all the way back. When you read classic books like Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill and others, they're all about that. And it's not just manifestation, it's having a positive mindset. And it's thinking positively about things at the same time, doing all the things that you need to do to move forward. But the thing is that when people are saying, if only, they're thinking that money is going to solve the problem. But money isn't going to solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem is looking internally to your mind and figuring out what it is that's really holding you back, or that's really keeping you from getting that money or bringing that extra money in. And it could be, you can have, like I said, you can have two different personalities, money personalities, one for your personal finance and one for your business. They can be completely different. But either way, it takes a lot of introspection and looking inside of yourself to understand what the story is that you're telling yourself about why you're not you're not bringing in more money, or why you're not happy with having what you have, and and figuring out how that's playing into what you're drawing into you.
Mhm. I think it's interesting that you said you could have two different personalities, one for personal finances and one for business, because I would have thought, well, if someone is just kind of conservative with money personally, they're going to be conservative, in business and vice versa. But you're saying that that's not the case, right? So how is that even explained if it's way different, for business versus, what they're doing personally?
So I personally have two separate money personalities. So
Okay.
my personal finance personality, I'm a saver. Like, I'm always worried about having enough or saving for the future, and would always feel guilty when I spent money on myself. And that's
Mhm.
actually how I ended up creating my Me Money method, which is a whole separate topic. But that that in itself was my money mindset. Like, I would feel guilty. I would be like, I shouldn't be spending this money. I should be saving it for the future. I should be putting it into this fund or that, or my emergency fund or my retirement fund. So there was that guilt behind it. So a saver.
Mhm.
But then in my business, I feel like it's an investment. So I'm more
Mhm.
likely to be like, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, let's go bigger, go home. Let's invest in that. Let's take this course. Let's learn about this. Let's get this certification, right? So I'm much more free with my money, and I'm actually more of a risk taker, like, which is almost, one of the extreme ends of money personalities when it comes to my business. And I probably need
Mhm.
to reel myself in, and I'm fully aware of that. But it's just like, it's weird that you can have these two separate things. And it's really what you're justifying. Again, it's the story
Mhm.
you're telling yourself. And I mean, I can have this whole
Mhm.
conversation with myself too. So I'm not immune to it just because I'm talking about it. Everybody has their money personalities. And the
Mhm.
other thing is that your money personality can change over time too. So
Mhm.
it might be a season that you're in, or, you might have more money flowing in. So you have like a different personality than you did when you had less. And it can be like you lose a job and then all of a sudden, the brakes go on and your money personality completely flips, right? So
Mhm.
it's not necessarily always the same, but there's still the same underlying emotions around money that are shaped by
Mhm.
your life experiences.
Mhm. So are there more than two personalities? You said the saver and the risk taker. Is there something like in between, or is it just kind of a range from I'm a super saver to I'm a risk taker?
So if you Google money personalities, there's all different people that have came up with different ones. I identify 5 in my process,
Mm.
and the 5 that I identify are the spender, the saver, the avoider, the risk taker, and the security seeker. So
Mm.
the spender is someone who likes to spend money. It can be on themselves, it can be on somebody else. They're just a little bit more free with their money going out. A saver is someone like me who likes to who still spends money on herself. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I never spent money on myself, but I just was always felt guilty and always thought I should be saving it. And then there's an
Mhm.
avoider who doesn't like to even think about it. Just if there's money there and I want to spend it, I'll spend it. I'm not going to even worry about it. It's either,
Mhm.
it's stressful, or it doesn't make sense to me, or maybe I have a bad idea of money because maybe my parents fought about money all the time. So I
Mhm.
don't, it's a bad thing. So I don't want to think about it. There's lots of reasons you could be an avoider. And then the extreme ends are the risk taker and the security seeker. So the risk taker goes a step further than a spender, where they're taking more risks, they're being more bold. They're like, they want to, like I said, go big or go home. They're going to spend more money on like life experience type of things that are going to cost
Mhm.
more, right? Not just spending regular everyday stuff. They're going to be like, let's do this big thing. And then the security seeker is the extreme of the saver, where it's like they're
Mhm.
never going to spend money on themselves. I shouldn't say never, but they don't spend money on themselves. They are just very much in security and keeping it. They're the ones you hear about where like, oh, this old lady passed away and she lived in this little tiny hut and worked hard her
Mhm.
whole life and she didn't spend any money, and then she ends up leaving millions of dollars to some charity. And so that's a security seeker. Like that money was security to that person, and they weren't spending
Mhm.
it, and they just like wanted it to be there as their security blanket. They knew that they would be okay, but maybe they didn't. Maybe that's all about the
Mhm.
money personalities. So
Mhm.
Yeah, those are the
Well,
five I identify.
oh, thanks. And I appreciate you going into that a little bit more too, because I was thinking there's probably a spectrum, on there too. But, while you were talking about that too, I was thinking, obviously in marriage, a lot of times too, they say, people are different. And so you'll have two different personalities. And I'm thinking the same is probably in business. So if someone is not a sole owner and there is a partnership, whether it's a husband wife partnership or other partners or investors in there, how does someone maybe manage where people are on different parts of that spectrum and someone maybe wants to save more, someone wants to risk more, and you need to make these financial decisions for your business? How do you kind of marry all of those different things together to make the best financial decision for your business?
I think the best way to do it is to come up with a plan in advance of having those conversations so that you have a certain amount of money set aside for specific things. And I don't want to say that it's budgeting because that sounds so restrictive and it sounds so like, we're living in scarcity mode, but more like you're setting it aside for specific things. So, if you want to set aside money for advertising and you want to set aside money for, personal growth so you can take some classes, or you want to set aside money for, this is how much we're going to be reinvesting into the business, or whatever you're setting, a piece of equipment, whatever it is, but setting aside separate accounts or separate buckets somehow, whether it's a spreadsheet or an actual account, so that you can track and you can be putting money into that. So that let's say that there's one person who's the spender who's like, let's do this, let's do that. And they want to do the things. And the other person's like, oh, let's reel it back in. I don't want to get into. If you have something set up where you're setting the money aside in advance and it's already earmarked for that, it's going to be a lot easier for the person who's the one who's afraid to spend the money because it already says, here's the money and this is exactly what it's for. So there's already permission to spend that money.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I think too in like personal things too, you could do the same thing where you could say, I'm going to put this much away for entertainment or this much away for travel or things like that too. So it's the same thing, right? Where you can kind of plan, and then maybe the one who's the super spender is limited on how much they're going to spend because you've only put so much away. But the one who maybe is saving is now saying, okay, well, we have saved this much for the trip. We can spend it and be okay with that, right?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I can talk about my me money method, which is a personal budgeting thing, but it can be flipped over into the business aspect if we're talking about two partners, whether they're husband and wife or whatever, and having two different money personalities in a business. So the me money method is setting aside a specific amount of money on your for you to spend on yourself. So the idea is I actually started this with my husband before I ever called it me money. I just started it because I put him on a budget because he didn't realize how much money he was spending. So he's a spender, I'm a saver, and I needed to to reel him in, but in a nice way. So he gets a certain amount of money every paycheck that goes into a separate account just for him. I get the same amount because it's the same household, same lifestyle. Doesn't matter who makes more money. We both get the same amount that we get to spend, right? And then we have to stay within that budget so that, like, if I want to do something later, I'm going to need to save up for that. Like if I'm saving up for a girls' trip, that's something that he's not going to benefit from. So that's going to come from me money. And so I'm going to use that money later. So I might not want to spend it now. And so what it did is for him as a spender, he started making better choices. Like he was like, well, I'm not going to buy this now because I want to use that money for something later. Does that mean he's spending less money? Maybe not. Maybe he's just making better choices because now he's not going to spend money on a golf shirt, but he's going to put that money towards a golf trip, and maybe he'll spend more money on the trip, but he still has just his amount. And for me, it allows me to buy things that I would have felt guilty about buying before. Like I could have justified buying 10 things for $10, but I might not justify buying something for $100. And now I know the money's already set aside. So maybe I'll skip the 10 things for $10 and wait to buy something for $100. So it just reframed everything. And talking about two people in a business together, if let's say that they each have me money within the business and say, we're going to put aside this much. And then we each get to decide what we want to do for the business with this money. It has to be for the business. but we can do whatever we want with this money for the business. So if one person is like, I want to spend more money on advertising. The other person's like, I want to spend more money on, equipment or whatever it is. Then they can each say, okay, well, let's just do this. And this is our money that we can decide what we want to do. It has to go towards the business, but we don't have to answer to each other in it because it's already set aside for whatever we decide. That could be as simple as that.
Perfect. Well, I know too, a lot of times entrepreneurs avoid looking at financial reports or really digging into the numbers because they're afraid of what it's going to reveal to them, right? And they're a lot of times thinking, well, at least there's money in the bank, so I'm okay, right? So do you want to touch on why they are facing that fear and what they can do maybe to overcome it?
Yeah, so the fear is it's emotion. So it's really because they're afraid of what they might find, right? But the truth is that once they start uncovering what the truth is, they actually have peace of mind because the fear of the unknown is the biggest thing. So they have a fear of knowing, but it's really in a fear of the unknown. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they think that they're afraid to know, but they're really afraid because they don't know. So once they understand it and they can see it, they'll have clarity and they'll have peace of mind because even if it's not what they wanted to hear, they'll be like, okay, I'm glad I know that now because now I know what I need to do and where I need to go and what things I might need to change. But if they don't do that, then there's always that fear of the unknown.
Right, exactly. It's funny. I was just at an event this morning and someone is kind of new to the area, started a business maybe in the last year, maybe early this year. I forget exactly when she opened. But she had to do a lot of prep work, to get it before she could launch. But anyway, today I was mentioning again, don't forget that there's, estimated tax payments are due and, financial return or your tax returns are due, by these certain dates. And afterwards, she's like, I know you were talking to me. She's like, but I'm afraid to come talk to you because I don't know what the numbers are yet. And I'm kind of embarrassed, like maybe if I'm not making enough. And I think a lot of times people think that too is, if they're looking at things too and they're not where they expect that they're going to be, and especially if they have outside help, whether it's a bookkeeper, a CPA, helping with their taxes, that they're going to be judged even. And I've told people before too, we're not judging you. We're just trying to help you understand your numbers so you know what adjustments you can make too. So do you want to touch on that too? Maybe there's a fear of judgment from other people as well if they're not where they think they should be based on their estimates, their numbers, what they thought they were going to accomplish.
Yeah, there definitely is a fear of judgment. I compare it to the people who say, I need to lose weight before I'll go to the gym. Like, I mean, it's like the reason you go is to get better. You don't try to get better before you go. Or that's like saying like, oh, I'm sick, but I'm going to wait till I get better to go to the doctor. I can come up with a number of analogies. So I would want people to know that whatever they're doing, get the help. Go to the people who know it. Like you're not supposed to in your business, if you're not an accountant or a CPA or a financial person, that's not your business. That's not supposed to be your expertise. People hire you for your expertise, whatever that is. You need to hire other people for their expertise. And the idea that they're embarrassed and that that used to happen to me all the time as a financial planner. It still happens to me now doing financial education, which I'm trying to relieve that gap. But it's like I see people with this all the time. That's what I do. So be open, be vulnerable, get financially naked because that's how you're going to get the answers that you need.
Right. And in this case, I told her too, and I was like, well, my goal is to give you peace of mind. And honestly, it's your first year in business. You had to invest a lot to open up. And so it's expected that you're not necessarily even going to be profitable in your first year. And it may take a little bit of time to get there. And so don't be embarrassed that you're not where you think you should be because maybe you have a number on yourself that you think you should be doing that's really not even reasonable for what you should be doing too. So anyway, I just thought I would share that too because I think that's a lot of times what people are afraid of is I don't want to, have help and some financial guidance, because people might think I'm making too much money or I'm not making enough money, or, you know, there's all of these things that happen. And I try to tell clients too, it's like our goal is really just to give you the actual facts from your information and help you make those decisions, you know, to make strategic changes that are going to impact your business, and you'll be more successful too. So I think knowledge is power as well too, but I think sometimes people are just afraid to really look at what those numbers are and see, like, maybe I'm not profitable, or maybe I'm doing better than I thought. And, you know, so I think definitely where you're talking about all of this emotion underneath it, subconscious even, they might not even realize what they're really truly thinking about it. But it does affect in the long run how they're running their business.
It does. It does. And their fear might be that you're going to tell them that they're not doing okay. And you know what I mean? So they might think, you know, she's going to tell me I'm not doing okay. She's going to tell me to start cutting things. She's going to tell me to, you know, they might have all these things like lined up in their head that they think you're going to do, which you may or may not do, you know? So it's just interesting that this is the whole emotion and mindset part of it. Right. And I think that opening up your mind to possibilities is a huge part of this, and bringing in the resources of other people is part of opening up your mind, and being willing to listen to things that other people say. Just because somebody gives you advice doesn't mean you have to take it, but you can at least understand yourself better by the advice that they're giving you, maybe. But maybe not too. I mean, you just don't have to take it. I think that one of the biggest things about money in business is that when we talk about money in business, it's almost always about tactical. It's about budgeting. It's about cash flow. It's about what does my P&L look like? What does my balance sheet look like? It's all tactics. But mindset is the strategy part of it. It's what you believe is possible, what you believe, how you believe you can grow your business, what you believe you can bring in. And when you shift your beliefs about your value, your earning potential, that all grows, because you can only grow up to the level of your mindset. And if your mindset doesn't think you're going to do it, then it's not going to happen. You have to like figure out how you can open up your mind to that. And I think that understanding your finances, understanding your money, your cash flow, your balance sheet, your P&L is the best way to start getting a handle on what that mindset is. I mean, I think the point is that you can have the best mindset in the world, but not have any financial know-how and run yourself into the ground. Or you can have the best financial knowledge in the world and have not a good mindset and run yourself into the ground. So I think that the point here is that you need to have both. You need to have the financial knowledge and bring in people to help you if you don't have it or don't want to pay attention to it. And keep your mindset positive and focused on growing your business and just learning more about yourself and how you interact with money.
Right. I always see, you know, it's interesting when you have children from the same family who come from things totally differently too, based on the same circumstances that they were in. One person maybe becomes a saver because, well, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I want to make sure that I save so I do have money. And then someone else might be, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I'm going to make sure I make a lot of money so I can spend a lot of money too, you know. And just seeing how the same circumstances, people can look at them differently and have completely different methods of how they, you know, monitor that money or what they do with the money too. So any tips too on maybe even for parents, like if we want to instill positive things in our children, or, you know, in a business, if we're working with other, you know, staff members too, that maybe are helping us with this, like anything we could do to maybe like impact those thoughts at all?
I would just say make it comfortable to talk about money, because it's such a topic that is still taboo. It's getting better. It is getting better. It's not nearly as taboo as it once was. But talking about it is the first step, and then understanding what your emotions are around it, you know, because like you said, you can have two people that came from the same household, and exactly that example that you said, and they go completely different directions, but they had the same parental story of money, but there might have been other things that played into it. You know, what was their first job experience with money? What was their financial situation when they had to move out on their own? I mean, those two things can make the complete difference into whether they're a spender or a saver, even though they grew up in the same household. So the money story starts from very young age, but it continues to grow as you have life experiences. So I would say talking to people and mainly understanding how you're feeling, what your emotions are when you're spending money and when money's coming in, and what the different things you're spending on, how you feel about it, right? When do you feel that pit in your stomach, and when do you feel joy about your money, right? And notice that. Notice what you're doing. And we talk about, today, in today's world, you have the instant gratification through, ordering things online and they show up at your door the next day, right? Or maybe even the same day, Uber Eats, whatever. And that's like instant gratification. So like, that's an easy way for people to get a quick bump and make them happy for that moment, because they've bought something new. They've treated themselves to something, right? So that's a way that you feel good about your money. But then do you feel guilty about it later? Are you feeling bad about that behavior that you had because you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that? Notice those feelings and lean into them and start reshaping your habits to make sure that you're having more positive interactions with money than negative.
Well, I know this has been an informative topic, but we are coming to the end of the time we have together today on this episode. So I wanted to ask, do you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners? And if they want more information and they want to touch base with you, how do they contact you?
Sure. The best way they can find me is to go to my website. It's lindagriz.com, LINDAGRIZ.com. And then there's all my social media links are there, so you can find me there. And then I have a resources page where they can take a money personality quiz. So they want to find out where they are on that spectrum of the 5 money personalities that I have on there. They are welcome to take that. There's a bunch of other freebies on that page too.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my show, Linda. I really appreciate it. I found this very informative. I'm sure others will have appreciated what you had to share today too.
Thanks, Candy.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.